Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Seekers of Sweetness series. We're going to be doing this series on YouTube for the next few weeks. It's a 6-part series, so let's go ahead and talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with the Micron PN pen, but you can use your favorite Tangle pen. I'll also be working with the white jelly roll from Sakura, but you can use your favorite white gel pen. I'll have a graphite pencil and a blending stump. You can use your favorite blending stump, or a Q-tip out of the bathroom will do in a pinch. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils or whatever color pencils you have, and let's get started with all this fun. Now, you'll need the template for the class, and that is in the class description below. So head over there, click on the link, and you can print out the template for the Seekers of Sweetness series. With that said, let's get started. So many of you might know that I like to do a little centering before we get started with our Zentangle practice. So let's take a moment to get comfortably seated here. Allow your spine to grow comfortably tall. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. You can let your hands rest in your lap for a moment. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes. Letting your attention come to your breath here as you begin by breathing in and slowly exhaling out. As you inhale, feel your body expanding with breath. And as you exhale, feel the release. And just following your breath for the next few moments. Breathing in and breathing out. And staying with the breath here. And so as we breathe, I thought I would share with you a poem from the inspiration for this series, Mary Oliver. And she has this beautiful poem called The Messenger. And she says, "My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. The quickening yeast, there the blue plums, here the clams deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished." And taking a moment to let that resonate with you. And then when you feel ready, gently now, wiggling in your fingertips and wiggling in your toes, and adding vision back into your practice. So let's dive in, shall we? We're going to learn a tangle called Crazy Blossom by Kat Kwan. And Crazy Blossom looks a little something like this. We're going to start with a nice, small, wavy circle. And then we're going to do an aura with another wavy kind of circle. And then we'll do one more. Now once I've got my wavy circle in place here in the center, I'm going to do a little bit of what we call Bronx cheer, where we have a cluster of circles that will come together later on. And then let's go ahead and zoom on this a little bit. What we're going to do is we are going to create these little indentations that come from where the valleys are in our little circle here. And you can see that I'm just going around and creating these little indentations. Now I'm going to go through each circle and do that very same thing. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and create these little flicks with my pen that go in towards the center. And you're going to see me go all the way around with these little flicks. And I'm going to do that in both of these circles. And so you can see that is Crazy Blossom. So let's go ahead and bring this into our piece. Let's go ahead and bring Crazy Blossom into our piece here. So I'm going to start by bringing that first little circle of waves into the piece and working around the beak of my hummingbird. And you can see that I'm being pretty mindful to not intersect that beak there. I'm going to go ahead and start another one of these waves right off the top of the head of the hummingbird here. And you can see that I'm bringing that around. And then finally I'll do one more set, and you can see that I'm starting through this indentation right here just to keep things fun and interesting. And so that is the beginning of Crazy Blossom. I'm going to start by bringing in a couple of those really fun little tipples around his beak, and it'll make it look like he's almost pollinating this flower here. And then I'll start to bring in those indentations. So looking for the valleys in your waves here, so you can see those are the lower valleys, and you're going to start to bring in those indentations. And I'm going to do this all the way through each rung. Once I have those indentations in, I'm going to go ahead and pool my ink in each of these little triangles that we have. Once I've got that all in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to do these little flicks with my pen. And you can see that I'm trying to keep them as random as I can. But this brings a lot of texture into the piece. And I'm going to go through each rung and do the very same thing. You can see I'm moving the tile around to make it work for my hands here. And some of the lines are longer and some of the lines are shorter too. I really love the way that looks. It's going to be such a fun tangle to shade. So we're going to move on to our next tangle, but you can pause me here so that you can finish it up. Our next tangle is called Frondus, and it's by Headquarters here, and it was used in the last project pack. And what it is a seed-like shape that's basically stacked, just like so. And then they have a little seed-like shape or leaf-like shape up at the top. Once you have that, you go around and you create this really fun little aura that works around it. So let's go ahead and bring Frondus into our piece. I've gone ahead and picked up my graphite pencil here. We're going to be using it just to create a string for Frondus. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a soft wavy line that's going to intersect where the hummingbird is, and then it's going to come out the bottom just like so. Now once I have that, I'm going to use this as my guideline, and I'm going to start to create those seed-like shapes. And this is just with my graphite pencil, just so that you get it the way that you want it. So I'm just going through and creating those seed-like shapes. And I'm stacking them, but you'll notice that when I get towards where the hummingbird is, I'm going to have to create kind of a little bit of hollybaw where it goes underneath and then comes out the other side. Same thing over here where it's going to intersect where my flower is right there. I'm going to let it come up towards the top here, and I'll let a little seed-like shape come off the top and over here as well. And then finally, I'm going to finish off with that little seed-like shape at the top. Now I'll start to come in and create these little indentations and aura around this really fun organic shape. And as I move through, what I'm really thinking about is how is this shape moving? So I'm just kind of diving in and creating this really fun, simple aura. Just like so. Same thing over here, coming down and creating a little indentation, looking for how I can bring in that aura. And then finally finishing it up. I'm going to go ahead and ink this in. You go ahead and do yours. So you can see I've got mine all inked in here. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a detail into these seed-like shapes. And it's going to look a little bit something like this. There's a tangle called Inapod that we use this tangle with, or this detail with. And so you can see it's like a seed shape with a little bit of an aura on each side. And so I'll go through and I'll start to add that kind of detailing into each of these shapes here. Such a fun tangle, that tangle. I hope you're really enjoying it. So let's go ahead and add in another one of these fun tangles. And this is printemps. It means spring in French. And all it is a spiral. But for our class today, our spiral is going to have a little bit of weight on it. And you can see that I'm coming in and just adding a little bit of a heavy line on the outside of where we have the spiral. And it just makes the spiral pop right off the page, which is really fun. So let's go ahead and bring that into our piece. I'm going to go ahead and layer printemps into the piece here, and I'm going to do it by making some fairly large ones in here. I'm going to start right in here and start by creating a nice large printemps that's going to come in. I'll do another one over here. And then I'll put another one down in here. And I'm going to let this kind of work its way across the piece here. So I'm going to come down into this corner and then maybe throw another one underneath. And then one more down in here. Now once I've got these the way that I want them, I'm going to add a little bit of weight to them. And so I'll come in and start to add a little bit of weight right up here in this corner. Come down in here and add a little bit of weight. And then I think I can get a little bit of weight right underneath this in here as well. And you can see that by adding that weight, it really gives this a nice feeling. So I'm going to go all the way throughout the piece and start to add this weight, and it gives that real graphic feel and really makes this tangle pop. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do some detail on the hummingbird. I'm going to do some detail work with the hummingbird by coming in and just doing a nice outline of his head here. And then I'll start to bring that line all the way around his body here. So I'm just defining the space here so that we know what we're working with. And just following the lines the best that you can on your piece. And then once I've got that, I'm going to come up into the beak of the hummingbird, and I'm going to just do a little bit of a triangle shape, and I'm going to pool my ink into his beak, just to really give this a little bit of pop. And once I've had a chance to do that, I'm going to drop back a little bit, and I'm going to give him his eye or her eye. I'll come to the wing of the hummingbird, and I'm going to do a little bit of a cloud-like shape and let it attach right behind his head there. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and just add these really nice diagonal lines that are going to come off of the wing here, just to give this hummingbird a little bit of definition. So you go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine. I'm going to start to bring a little bit of detailing down in the tail here. You're going to see me come down, and I'm going to start at this little indentation point, and I'm going to connect right where it kind of indents right over here. I'm going to kind of play this up where that indentation is as well. Coming back from that point, and I'm going to come right over here and play off this little indentation. And then finally, I'll come out and I'll move all the way to the edge and play off of this indentation as well, getting my lines nice and clean, and that's going to define the hummingbird. So if we were in the same room as each other, you know that I'd be handing out chocolate right about now, because we're bringing in some color. So let's talk about the colors that I'm going to be using for class today. I'm going to be working with the yellow ochre, which is PC 942. I'll be working with pale vermilion, which is PC 921, and I'll also be working with the crimson red, PC 924. So go ahead and gather those up. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, you can always just get your colors in the same hue and you'll be just fine. I'm going to take that yellow and start to work with it. You'll notice that my pencil is good and sharpened up here. And so what I want to talk about is that each color pencil is 3 different colors. You have your light, you have your medium, and you have your dark. It's all about the amount of pressure you put on the pencil. So remember, you have more colors than you think you actually do. Now you'll notice that the color pencil is really well sharpened, and I'm going to be working on the side of the lead, not the point. You'll notice that I'm going to hold my pencil pretty far back, and I'm holding with my thumb and my index finger. I'm going to take that pencil and start to just bring that color all the way throughout the piece. You can see that I'm really not having a care in the world. I'm just going to go through and lay down all that color throughout the flower. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you how to do some really beautiful shading with Crazy Blossom. Once I've had a chance to bring all that color through Crazy Blossom, I'm going to pick up my orange, and I'm going to begin to do some shading around the outside edge of that first rung. You can see that I'm just bringing in that orange here and letting it go all the way around that circle. Once I've had a chance to get all the way around that circle, I'm going to let some of that area where I've got the petal pushing outward start to dip outward. So I'll let it be a little bit more dramatic in those areas. You can see that I'm letting it grow a little bit so that I get a little bit more drama. I'm going to let this one touch the edge. And once I've had a chance to let that grow a little bit, I'm going to put down the orange and pick up the red. And the red is just going to go right around the edge of our piece here. This is just to help us build some drama and really get it to pop. I'm not pushing hard on this pencil because it has a lot of pigmentation to it, so I really don't have to push hard. And these colors tend to work really well with each other. So if you're new to color, write down this color combination so that you can try it with other tangles. Once I've got it the way that I want it, I'm going to pick back up that yellow that we started with in the beginning, and I'm going to do a little bit of blending by doing little circles over that line of demarcation where the orange is meeting the yellow, and just really let this soften up a little bit. Once I've had a chance to get the orange to soften up, you're going to see me start to dip back into where the red is meeting the orange. And really what I'm doing here is I'm trying to tease that pigment up and around. That yellow has a lot of wax in it, and that can pull the pigment out. So you can see I'm doing little circles just to blur out the edge. I'm going to use the same technique to blend out on the second rung as well. So you can do it on the first rung, and then you're going to do it on the second rung. So you go ahead and do yours, and I'm going to work on mine. I really love the way that looks, and I hope that you do too. So let's go ahead and let go of the oranges and the yellows, and we're going to start to work with the greens. But if you need to pause me here just so that you can finish up, this is a great place to do it. I have in my hand the lime peel green, which is PC1005, and I also have peacock green in my hand, which is PC907. Now, if you don't have the peacock green, you can always substitute it with grass green, but what I'm really looking for is just a light green and a dark green. I'm going to start with the light green first, and just like we did with the flower, I'm going to go into the aura of our frondus here, and I'm going to shade down the whole thing with that light green. So you're going to see me just come down through the whole piece and start to bring in that light green all the way throughout the aura. You go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add a dark green shading on the left hand side of the piece. So go ahead and shade down, and then I'll see you in a minute. So I've picked up my dark green in my hand here, and we're going to focus on this side of frondus. I'm going to start by making a little line up at the top, and you're going to see me just start to aura down the side of frondus on the left hand side with that light green, or rather the dark green. And I'm just going to focus on that left side. You can still see a little bit of my little string that we started with here. So I'm just going to carry that dark green all the way down the piece here. Now once I've had a chance to get all the way down towards the bottom, I'm going to just come back right along that line here and start to just add a little bit of a shadow right along that line. You can see that as I'm moving away from the center line, I'm lightening up my touch just a little bit, but I am pressing a little bit harder as I go along the black line, just to bring a little bit of definition into the piece. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do just a skosh of blending here. So to blend this out, all I'm going to do is go where the line of demarcation is, and you can see that I've got my light green in my hand here, and I'm just going in and blending out that line just a little bit. And you can see that you can work throughout the piece, especially if you're working on bumpy paper, that this kind of blending will help to fill in some of those spaces. So you can see that I'm just kind of working my way through and blending it out, and it almost gives it a little bit of a watercolor feel inside of that tangle there. So play with that, have fun with frondus, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work on the background. So I'm letting go of the greens here, and I'm going to start to bring in some of the blues. I have the light aqua PC992 and peacock blue, which is 1027. Such a great teal color. Now if you don't have peacock blue, you can always use the Copenhagen blue or true blue in lieu of it. So you can see that my pencils are well sharpened up here, and I'm going to start with the lighter color first. And what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to do a demonstration of it here, but you're going to do it all the way throughout the background, is I'm going to just very softly fill in the upper area with the light blue. And you can see that I'm doing little circles working on the side of the pencil and filling in this area with a soft mist of that blue. Now once I've got that blue in there, I am going to pick up that darker blue and start to bring in a little bit of perimeter shading into the piece. So it'll look a little something like this. I've picked up that darker blue and I'm going to do a soft dusting of that darker blue all the way around where we have our border here. So you can see that I'm bringing that soft mist of that darker blue in there. I'm not pressing hard. This is just so that we can get a little bit of drama going for that background. Now I'm going to do that all the way around the outside edge, but I'm also going to do it around the flower and the leaf that we have up here. So you can see that I'm going pretty softly and dusting around all of the leaves that we have up here. So I'm going to use that whole technique, same down here and same down here. Go ahead and do yours. I've picked back up my light aqua here, and we're going to use this for some blending in this upper and all these other areas in here. You can see that I've got a strong line of demarcation, and all I'm going to do is start to bring in that light aqua and buffer out that line of demarcation so that it softens up. The other thing I'm doing is I'm really trying to kind of tease out that pigment so that it really gets this kind of soft tropical feel, almost like you would see early in the morning in a garden. Okay, so just really soft and misty. And then once I've got that really kind of nice soft misty feel, I'm going to pick up my white pencil and I'm going to start to blend out that background. So the pencil that I'm using is the PC938 from the Prismacolor line, but if you have just a regular pencil set, you want to grab your color pencil from that set that is white. Okay, and you'll notice what this is doing is it's blending up all of that background so that we don't have any kind of scratch in it, and it really makes it kind of feel very smooth and clean. So you can see the difference here between here and there. So you go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit more to that background. So for this background, I'm going to pick up that darker blue here, and we're going to start to add a little bit of wallpaper in the background. Now for those of you who are new, wallpaper is where you're tangling with the color that you're coloring with. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to bring in these really nice just lines that are going to aura this outside line, but I'm going to interrupt that line with a couple of dots and then continue and then interrupt. So I'm going to do it again, just coming down and then interrupting the lines, coming down and interrupting. So you're going to see me continue to use this technique with the interrupted lines, and the whole idea was to kind of give it almost like a feeling of maybe a little bit of rain in the garden. So you can kind of play with it and see how you like it. I'm going to do the same thing up top where I just interrupt the line with a couple of dots and then go. So have fun with this and play. Enjoy what you're doing, and I'll see you in a minute. So you can see that I've kind of interspersed the lines here where I have a couple of dots, and then I'll put my next line right next to the dots and then wait for this long line to do my dots. So I kind of intersperse them or weave them around, which is really fun, and I love the feeling of it, and I hope you do too. Almost gives it a beaded background, which is nice. So when we come back, we're going to start to work with Printemps, and then we'll finally start to bring some interest into that hummingbird. So I'm letting go of the blues, and now I'm going to bring in some earth tones into the piece here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that really pretty yellow ochre that we started with in our flower, but I'm going to start to add in a little bit of burnt ochre, which is the PC 943, and then I also have Tuscan red in my hand, which is PC 937. Now really what you can see is this is kind of a mustard color, a lighter brown, and then kind of like a reddish brown. So if you don't have the burnt ochre, you could always use terracotta, and if you don't have the Tuscan red, you could always use like just a deeper brown, and that would be just fine. So to start for the printemps, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to dust through the printemps halfway. And you'll notice that I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'll just do the demonstration on this side for the sake of keeping the video nice and short for you all. So I've got a little bit of a dusting of the printemps with that light mustard color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that light brown, and I'm going to shade about halfway through that light mustard color just to give this a little bit of interest. And you'll see that I'm coming around where that leaf is to give this a little bit of shading too. I'm going to come in with a little bit of this underneath in here, so you can see that it almost gives the illusion that this is on top of this and this is on top of that. I'll pick up a little bit more of that darker color, so this is that Tuscan red that I've been working with that I really, really love. And I'm just adding it along the black line to really get that printemps to pop right off the page. So I'm going to just dust it along this line. And then I'm going to pick back up that light yellow again, and I'm going to start where the darker brown and the lighter brown are meeting it and just kind of blur those two together. So giving this a really nice soft feel. I'll come down here and do the same. And over here and do the same. And I just love layering printemps like that. It just is so pretty the way that it layers on top of each other. Now if you feel like you've got a little bit too much white in here, you can carry some of that lighter mustard color down just to create a little bit more depth. But really you get the idea of how we're creating these shadows, and look at how pretty that is as it's floating down. I'm going to do the same thing over here, giving this a really nice softness as well. Isn't that a lovely way to handle printemps? I love the way that I made a little shadow in here for where we have frondus and used that as the place to put the darkness on these pieces over here. And I just love the way that this just kind of feels like it's floating and moving. Really, really fun. So go ahead and finish those up, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with that hummingbird. So I have some new colors in my hands here. I'm going to be working with Process Red, which is PC994. It's got a really nice kind of magenta feel to it. And then I'm also working with Orchid, which is the replacement for lavender in the Prismacolor set. And this is PC1105. These are really beautiful colors together. So I'm going to start by doing a little dusting of the orchid right underneath the head of our hummingbird. And you're going to see me bring this all the way down to where the tail is, and I'm going to stop right at the tail. So I'm just doing a very soft shading of that orchid. I'm going to pick up some of that Process Red, and I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can see it, and I'm going to start to dust in a little bit of that Process Red. Now you can see that I'm going fairly lightly here and just doing little circles just like so. So just bringing this in and getting a little bit of that Process Red, almost like a blush on the belly of our hummingbird. You can see that I'm starting to press just a little bit harder here just to give this a little bit of interest. Once I've got that process red the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to pick up a little bit of that orchid, and I'm going to start to blur my edges to soften it. Once I've got it softened the way that I want, I'm going to start to lighten up my touch as I move away from the belly, and I'll pick up a little bit of white. You want to make sure that your white doesn't have any other blues on it or any of that kind of stuff. And you're going to see me start to blend that in. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add some detailing into this area. But you can see that I'm kind of letting this float all the way through just to give it a soft pastel blend. I have the process red in my hand here, and I've come back in and started to create some crescent moons along the belly of my hummingbird here, and I'm just going to stack them up kind of like the way we do Shattuck in Zentangle. So all I'm doing is just adding a couple of arches and connecting them, and that just brings a really nice little detail into the piece. You can do as many or as little of these as you like. Isn't that so fun? Let's pick up our blues again here. I'm going to work with the light aqua first, and I'm going to do a dusting of the light aqua through the head of our hummingbird here. I'm also going to bring it through the wing, and you can see that I'm just going very, very lightly here so that I don't have to fight with the background. And then I'm also going to do a little bit in through the tail as well. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add some shading. So I've had a little snafu with my recording here. Sorry, folks. So I'm going to tell you what I did. I picked up my darker color here that I have in my hand, and I'm just going to bring a little bit of that darker blue right along the top here. A little bit of darker blue right along the top of the wing and underneath the wing in here. And then finally a little bit of that darker blue throughout the tail going about halfway down. Now I picked up a little bit of my light aqua and I blurred my edges. So I blurred my edges all the way throughout and down in here. And then I also picked up my white pencil and I blurred out the edges a little bit more. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good understanding of what I did. I can't believe that that happened, but I can't go back now, right? So there you have it. There is how we are going to do our shading on our hummingbird. So I want to talk about how to shade frondus here. And so you can see I've got my graphite pencil in my hand here, and I'm going to do a light dusting of the graphite at the top and at the bottom of the seeds of frondus. And then I have a little bit of my tortillon in my hand here, and I'm going to just blend this out. Now remember, if you don't have a blending stump, just go grab a Q-tip and it'll work just fine. And you can see that all I'm doing is I'm leaving a little bit of light in the center, and that brings a little bit of depth into frondus. So go ahead and do that in all of your seeds here, and then when we come back, we're going to bring a little bit of color into the center of our flower. Before we add a little color into the center, you're going to see me bring a little bit of graphite right underneath my hummingbird, just to give him a little bit of a shadow over the top of the flower and over frondus here. So you're seeing me just put in a little bit of that graphite, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick up that tortillon again, my blending stump, and I'm just going to blend it in so that it gives this a little bit of shadow, and you can see that that really pronounces him right over the top of the flower and over frondus as well. So go ahead and add your shadow. So I've got the process red in my hand here, and we're going to focus in on the flower here, and you're going to see me just dust in those little tipples halfway just to give them a little bit of interest here. And I just love these little tipples because they give this almost like a party atmosphere right in the center. For me, tipple is one of those very fun little tangles to do. So go ahead and just shade half of your tipple to give that a little bit of interest. So the final component of this piece that we're doing here, we're going to add a little bit of tipple floating throughout, but these are going to be transcending tipple. So I'm just going to throw in a couple of these tipple here. You can see I'm going to go underneath the wing, and you see that I'm doing kind of a variation of sizes in here. I'll come up here and add a couple of them, and then I will come up or go over into this corner and add a couple of them. Now to shade these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick back up my graphite pencil here, and I'm going to add in a little bit of shading on one side, and I'm keeping it on the right hand side here. And then I'm going to pick up my graphite or rather my tortillon, and I'm going to blend it out, but you can see that you can still see through some of that graphite, which is intentional here. I'll pick up a little bit more of that graphite and give it a shadow. If you want to blend it again, you can blend it again. And then finally I'm going to pick up my white pencil, and I'm just going to do a little bit of white in that one corner. Now, when we go through and do all of these in this way, I'm going to show you when we come back what to do with the white pen to give this even more pop. So to bring some drama into that tipple, all I'm going to do is pick up my gel pen here, and I'm going to add a little bit of an arc and just give a little bit more pronunciation on the end of that arc, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a dot in the light spot. And I'm going to do that throughout with all of the tipple. And then finally I'm going to add a little bit of sheen just on the belly of my hummingbird here. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of a line and then a couple of dots just to make him look as though he's glistening in the sun. And so often you see hummingbirds shimmer, which I think is really, really beautiful. So go ahead and add a little shimmer into your hummingbird. So I'm going to pick up my pen again, and I'm going to add in my chop. And your chop is just your initial. You can see I'm hiding my chop in this little corner. I always like to hide it in there. And this is kind of the point where I get to take a moment to offer gratitude for this time creating and doing something that fills my spirit and really kind of feeds my creative process. So I hope that you'll take this time to just take a moment to enjoy what you have on the page here. So I always love to come back and look at a piece and see how differently I did it. The first time I added some tipple around frondus here, and this time I left it clean. And then in the background of this one I just did some straight lines, and in this one we added the interrupted line, which I think is really interesting and different. So I hope that you enjoyed the class. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. Even better, leave us a nice review, and even best, hit the subscribe button so more people can find us doing Zentangle, and you can be notified every time I add a class, which will happen next week because we are in the Seekers of Sweetness series. So keep an eye out for next week's class. Now, I'd love to see your creations over on our Facebook group. It's called the Tangled Yogi Art Community page, and all of my students share their work there, and everybody does something a little bit different, and we get really neat ideas from each other. So I hope you'll come on over and check that out. All you have to do is answer the security questions, and you're in and ready to go. And you know, another great thing that you can do is invite a friend over to do the Seekers of Sweetness together. It's always fun to tangle with a friend, and these classes are so fun and easy. It's just a really great time to spend with a friend. Well, that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. I look forward to seeing you for part 2 of the Seekers of Sweetness. Bye for now.